What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Somethin About Sports Podcast. This is your host once again, and for the first time on camera, but once again, Leon Edwards coming to you. First time on video. Decided I wanted to kind of hop into this realm. I've been going back and forth on getting into it. It's been something that I've had in the cards for a long time. And to be honest, where I'm recording at right now, I actually, this is the basement of my house, and I have a little room here that I want to turn into my little studio. Of course, you guys that have homes, or you guys that have helped other people move into homes or whatever else, like those things never go as planned. So that's still a continuous ongoing project that I'm working on. But I didn't want to wait too long to get into these videos. I've been excited about doing it, been excited about getting my face out there, adding a new element to the podcast. I probably won't do every podcast on video, but I do want to add this element in to the content, continue to evolve, continue to bring you guys new things. And this is one of those things I wanted to do. So thank you guys for joining. This is my first time showing my face. Most of you guys that listen, I know you guys know what I look like. I know a lot of you guys I already know outside of this and everything else. But for those of you that don't, this is me. Nice to meet you guys and actually put a face to the voice. And I want to go ahead and hop into this. Those of you that listened to the last episode, you know how this one's going to start off. I took a little hiatus from doing the podcast for a little while. Lost one of my best friends. Had a whole lot of things kind of culminate into that. And I explained some of this over on the other one. But if you guys didn't listen to that, that was episode 18.5. We got a little out of order. But if you guys didn't listen to that, lost one of my nearest and dearest friends, a guy who was a groomsman in my wedding. Somebody who I would have considered one of my best friends. In that same time frame, I celebrated a birthday for an age that friend didn't get a chance to see. There was just a lot of emotions going on, a lot of things happening in life outside of, doing this. And when that stuff happens, I've talked about that on here before, but this thing is a one-man show. This is just me. I'm the person who prepares all of the information. I'm the person who studies all the information. I'm the person who's recording, editing, posting, whatever you see from Something About Sports is me. So when things happen in life, when things happen outside of this, it can derail that sometimes. It can derail the attention there. And that was just one of those things. It just didn't feel right. And it felt like there was other things to say before kind of getting back into sports. Sports just didn't feel like, it didn't feel like something that I even needed to be focused on at the time. And to be honest with you guys, as I've talked about, I've kind of hopped into this Chiefs season kind of blind. I mean, I've paid attention to what's going on with the Chiefs, but I haven't nearly prepared for this season and dove down into opponents, some of the things that I think the Chiefs will do. There's going to be a lot of changes to this Chiefs offense that I'm really kind of excited to watch unfold as this season progresses, and things like that. But I'll get into that stuff. I'm already getting ahead of myself. With that stuff. But anyway, going into that, those of you guys that know that I cover Kansas City sports, I cover the sports at large and all of that. I haven't done as much of the preparation. I haven't really been as dug into that because there's just been a lot of other things on my mind. When things happen in your world, when things happen around you, they make you think, they make you consider things, they make you put a lot of things into perspective. And that's one of the things that's been going on in my world over these last few weeks, really couple of months now. And it had me kind of going through periods where I'm writing stuff down, thinking things that, advice for me, things that I'm reading about, finding that I think speak to me, and just kind of culminating in two phrases, two sentences, whatever you want to call it. The first one was to be present, or the first one was to be alive. Sorry, guys. The first one was to be alive. And you guys can go listen to episode 18.5. I wrote about that. But being alive is something that I have a different perspective on now than I did a couple of months ago. And the second phrase and the second one that I'm going to kind of take from this and take going forward that I wanted to share is being present. Be present. A lot of times we get caught up in life and we go through the motions. And I talk about this a little bit in the other one as well, but we get caught up in life. We go through the motions. We get focused on the small day-to-day things that keep our lives going, that keep our lives in order, that keep us, sane, I guess I should say, whether that be work, whether that be passion, whether that be hobbies. We put so much into those things to making those things work that we forget sometimes to take a step back and actually just be here, take in where we are, pay attention to surroundings, understand things that are going on around us. We miss that stuff a lot of times. So focused on making everything perfect, so focused on making so many small things right that really play a piece into us being here. All of those things are us wanting to set ourselves up to be more present, to be here, to be more alive, to have something else, to get somewhere else. And we waste away so much of life building that and tweaking it and putting time into it and focusing solely on it that we don't just sit in it and we don't just appreciate some of the growth. We don't appreciate some of the things that we get a chance to see, some of the things we get a chance to experience, the things we get a chance to live. So be present, find something that you genuinely love to do, that you love to see, love to hear, be around, and do that for you. It doesn't have to be alone, but do it for you. Do it because of how it makes you feel. Do it because of the satisfaction that it brings you. I'll be honest with you guys. There was a time in my life where I had to explore and understand what genuine happiness feels like. A lot of times we are trained or we're taught or, we just kind of condition ourselves into basing happiness off of external things. We base happiness off of how other people feel about us, what people say about us. We base happiness off of the things that we have. We base happiness off of so many other things that it's hard to understand what genuine happiness is. It's hard to understand what that feels like and how to chase after that, how to get it. Those things are hard. Those things are things that, you have to work at, and you have to take a step back, be present in life, understand where you are, what things mean to you that are going on around you at the time, and take stock of those things. And that's how you explore that. That's how you find those things. But you have to find those things that make you happy. You have to chase after those things that'll make you the happiest at the end for you. You want that fulfillment for yourself. You want that happiness for yourself. You want those things, and you got to figure out what those things are that bring that joy to you, that bring that happiness to you, and also light that fire within you as well. It can't be about how it'll make other people feel about you. It can't be about how it'll make other people feel towards you. It has to be about how you will feel for yourself. Another thing that comes with being present is growth. When you take a second, you stop, you look around at your surroundings, you look around at your circumstances, you start to notice growth. You start to notice places you've been. You start to remember, oh, this is where I've been. This is something that I've done before. When you take those seconds and you think about those things and you're present in the moment, that is you realizing the growth that you've had. But also, sometimes we can be scared off of taking that, accepting that growth, knowing that those things have happened, because growth is always going to come with change. It's always going to come with, whether it's sacrifice, whether it's relationships, whether it's, as far as relationships changing, whether it's, comfortability, it may be a work situation. It may be a stability thing. It may be a living situation. That growth comes with change, and change is uncertain. Change is, it's hard sometimes to accept, and sometimes we run from it. Sometimes we'll do anything we can to fight off that change, instead of riding that out and seeing where we can grow from it, we fight it off and we pour into these little things, and I've talked about that already, but that's part of being present. We kind of remove our presence and we just mindlessly chase after things that at the end of the day really are building towards, at some point, you having to be present and enjoy those things anyway. What's comfortable and easy, it's not always good for you. And that kind of goes back to that growth and that change. Growth and change are uncomfortable. They're hard, especially growth. It's hard to grow. If you've ever grown plants, I'm not into plants. I'm not a plant person, because at my first corporate job that I ever had, I tried to grow a plant. When I very first started there, they gave me some seeds. They gave me the soil. It was like a little planter that they gave me I could put on my desk. I tried to grow the plant, could never get it to grow, get it to grow. And my boss who gave it to me, she's like, yeah, there's an art to growing plants. You got to do this. You got to do that. You got to do this. You got to do that. I'm like, man, it's kind of hard. But when you think about that, that's a really good analogy for growth in anything. If you're growing, it's not going to be easy. That growth is going to come through hard work. It's going to come through hard studies. It's going to come through time put into whatever it is that you're doing. And whether that's, fulfilling or not, it's based on whether you choose to be present and in that moment and accept that that's part of the journey, and accept that the bad things that come out of that, the negative things that come out of that, those are also part of the journey as well. It's okay to feel emotions, something that I talked about in the other one. Emotions are good. Emotions are part of being present. Emotions are part of being human. It's okay to feel them. It's okay to explore them. It's okay to accept them, even if they may not be the emotions that people around you want you to have. It's okay to feel whatever it is that you feel about whatever it is, because that's how you feel. And even you can't control that. And that's okay to feel, and it's okay to accept that, whether people like it or not. And that goes back to do things for you. You at some point is going to build up into you doing it in a rebellious way or doing it in a way that's not going to fulfill you. So it's not always going to be easy. It's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows. There's going to be hard things, but you got to explore that stuff too. That stuff's part of being present. That stuff's part of being here. That stuff's part of the journey. Love people, loving people, having people around you, enjoying their presence and appreciating the things that make them people you love. It's part of being present as well. Just because it's cliche and as standard as it sounds, you just never know. You never know when that'll be gone, and you never know when that thing is gone. You never even know sometimes what you appreciate about a person. You never know. And I could go into stories and things like that, but I want to kind of get through this. I know you guys come here to listen to sports, but I'm glad you guys are listening to this. Those of you that have kept listening without skipping. The last thing I want to say is just, as far as going forward with that loving people, you have to have people worth loving. If you feel like there's nobody in your life worth loving, then you have bigger problems than anything else that you think is a problem. Because somebody loves you and there's somebody that you love and you are running away from that or choosing not to accept it for some reason. But I refuse to believe that there's a human being on this earth that not somebody loves. And I know that, it's not always going to come from the traditional spaces. I'm blessed. I've been blessed to be loved from birth by both of my parents and a family that loves me, a support system that's there for me. I was able to parlay that into having love from great friends, lifelong friends, a wife now that loves me, who has loved me from day one, kids that love you unconditionally. So I've been blessed to always have people around me that are worth loving. And even at times for me, it was hard for me to be present in those moments and understand what that love means to your journey, what that love means to who you are as a person and molding you as a person. So, find those people that are worth loving. It's not always your family. It doesn't have to be. It's not always the people who are forced into those situations. You never know, but find those people that are worth loving and be you. Enjoy being you. You only get one life to be you. You only get one life to live, and there's only one you. Be you, be present, be alive, and let's keep doing this thing together. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you haven't listened to the other one, Be Alive, I recommend you go do that as well. From here on out, we'll probably stick to some sports stuff. I am a writer in my day job, what I do. My 40 hours a week or whatever that I do, I'm a writer. So I write a lot about a lot of different things. So we may incorporate some of that. These are just things that I've written down, things that you just kind of snowball into complete thoughts. That's just kind of what's been going on over the last month and a half, 2 months or so. So that's where that came about. And we may have some more of those worth sharing. You guys let me know what you think about that too. But without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into what you guys came to listen for. So I want to hop into some NFL stuff first. First, I'll talk about my predictions. So I realized I didn't actually give my predictions on the podcast. I had my note that I have where I kind of wrote everything out for what I thought how I thought the season would go. Posted that on Twitter, so some of you guys saw that there, but I'm going to go through all of that stuff, run through what I think is going to happen this year, and then I'll talk about some storylines going into week 2 of the season, some things that I'm watching specifically, hop on a couple NBA things, couple baseball things, and then we'll get out of here. But mostly this is going to be about football. I know football's right back in full swing. So the bulk of the time in this podcast will be spent on football, but we'll circle back around to NBA, MLB as we get things back normal. And especially as the NBA nears the season and training camp and all that, but Major League Baseball is starting to wind down and get ready for the postseason, which is, those of you guys that ride through baseball with me, you guys know how fun Major League Baseball playoffs are. So we'll get into Major League Baseball some more there too. Stay tuned for that. But for now, let's hop into some NFL stuff. So first, I want to talk about the division winners, who I think will win each division, who I think will get the wild cards out of each conference, and then Super Bowl picks, award picks. I'll go through this stuff fast because we've already had a week now, and you guys have heard this from everybody else. But I want to just give a little bit of rationale for those of you that maybe saw something like, what's the idea behind that? Stuff that's obvious that most people know. I'll probably gloss over and go pretty quick. We got a long season ahead. We'll be talking about this stuff all year. So we got a lot. We got a lot of time to get into a lot of these teams. We got a lot of time to talk about a lot of this stuff. I'm hoping now with video added into the repertoire, the routine of kind of what we'll be doing, we can maybe get some live streams going. I already actually have a couple of guests lined up. Something that I've talked about a lot, something that I've been planning to do for a while, but I always wanted to wait until I had a chance to get the video and at least have the person's face. Video quality and stuff like that, we'll continue to get that improved. I'll continue to kind of work towards building that up, but at least having the video, you guys being able to see kind of the genuine the authenticity behind it, what we're talking about, and talking to someone else, especially, I think that's important. Probably pull off a win against them. The Dolphins have put together a decent team, and I do think that's a team that's coming. I wouldn't be surprised if, you see them sneak into the playoffs here next year or this year or next year, but I think that's the Bills division, and I think they'll win that division going away. I think that's a fairly easy pick to make. The AFC North, Baltimore Ravens. This is one that I think is probably a little bit more split between the Ravens and the Bengals. I just think that the Ravens have the infrastructure. I think the Ravens are the better organization, the better football team. Last year, the Bengals had a chance to do something special, and they took advantage of that. And we can't take that away, and we can't discredit that. We can't act like it didn't happen. We can't act like that doesn't make them a great team or a great, collection of talent. I love what they're building over there in Cincinnati, but I just think the foundation in Baltimore, what they've had going for, a long time with MVP at quarterback, a running game that's going to be rejuvenated whenever they get J.K. Dobbins back, something that has really been lacking. Even when Lamar Jackson was healthy last year, the running game was hurting. They lost their top runners. They lost both of their top runners, actually, J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards both. The last time we saw Lamar Jackson and both of those guys healthy, the Ravens won that division going away and were the top seed in the conference. So I think it's fairly – for me, it's fairly easy to see that the Ravens, the collection, the talent that they've built up, I think a lot of people just forgot about it last year because of what we saw on the field was not that great of a product because they were so depleted by injuries. And that really, I think, changed people's perspective and got people a little bit farther down on the Ravens than they should have gone. And then the Bengals making the Super Bowl just kind of muddied that water even more. But I do think the Ravens are the better football team. I think the Bengals are a really, really good football team. I'm not saying that at all. I like Joe Burrow. I like Jamar Chase. I like what they're building there. But I think that's the Ravens division right now. And probably as long as you got Harbaugh and Lamar there together and Lamar's happy, that's a conversation for another day. He's playing for a contract right now. But as long as those guys are together, I see that being their division to lose most seasons. AFC West, I'm a Chiefs fan. You guys see the KC on the hat. It's not Chiefs, but it's KC. The Kansas City Chiefs are winning the AFC West. That's the Chiefs division. People can say whatever it is they want about that. Until somebody proves they can take it away from Kansas City and Andy Reid, I'm not picking against them. I'm not betting against them. And then you throw Patrick Mahomes in there and what he's done since he took over that quarterback job. And this is just it's something that you don't see often, what they've done in this division. Patrick Mahomes has never lost to the Denver Broncos as the starting quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs. This will be – and he actually got a head start against the Broncos as well. His first start actually in his rookie season, he got a chance to start the last game. It didn't matter. Chiefs had already clinched their playoff spot, was against the Broncos. He beat them that week, and then he hasn't lost to them since. So they just totally dominated this division. We got a chance to see what they look like week one already, kind of getting a chance to cheat a little bit on this. None of these were cheats, though. This was something that was typed up way before, actually. I just kind of took a screenshot and was like, I guess we didn't talk about this too much. Let's throw this up. So, but anyways, the Chiefs are the Chiefs, and we saw that on week one as well. So I think the Chiefs take this division going away as well. I think that, it's going to be more competitive. The talent in the division is unmatched, and I don't think it's unlike anything I've ever seen before in the NFL. But I still think that the Chiefs have what it takes to take that division and do what they need to do. They've diversified the offense. The offensive line we've already known is really, really good at run blocking. They've diversified it a little bit more. They'll have more weapons to go to. They lost Tyreek Hill. The Kansas City Chiefs will not be the same team without Tyreek Hill. Any Chiefs fan or non-Chiefs fan should be able to say that objectively because it's the 100% truth. Tyreek Hill is a once-in-a-generation type of player. Well, once-in-a-lifetime type of player, but he's a generational type of player as well. So the Chiefs are going to have to do things differently, but they put together a collection of talent and built this team in a way that they can do so. And you saw that on display week 1, and I think you'll continue to see it. They'll look like the same old Chiefs. And I've said that all off season, and I think that's going to be my mantra for this year. It's the same old Chiefs. You got new faces, you got new names, but that's just what they do. I'm sorry, guys, I'm getting fanning out. Hard for me to separate sometimes. I'm snapping back into it, though. The AFC West is really good, and I wouldn't be – let me say this. There's a more than zero chance the Chiefs lose the division. I'm not saying that that's not a possibility. The Chargers are really, really good. They've built that defense up, and Brandon Staley, being a defensive coach, should have the pieces to make a juggernaut of a football team. So I'm not saying that there's just no possible way the Chiefs lose this division. There's talent all over the place. I think the Chargers are the biggest contenders, and I think if the Chiefs were to lose the division, it would be to them. But the Broncos also have Russell Wilson, a Super Bowl winning quarterback, a guy who's been known to elevate talent, and a lot of talent on that roster. So it'll be intriguing to see. I didn't mention the Raiders. I think the Raiders are a good team. The Raiders are another team that could sneak into the playoffs as well. I don't see them having the ceiling of winning the division, but I do think that they will be a good football team, and they have the makings of a potential playoff team as well. So that's the AFC West. Spent a little bit of extra time on that because in reality, I could have talked about all 4 teams because you can talk to 4 different people and all 4 of them probably would pick a different team from that division. That's just one of those divisions that it's hard to really say, and everybody's just kind of on the edge of their seats to see how that thing shakes out. But the AFC South, this is one that I think has been there's a little bit of a shift in the balance of power in that division right now. And that shift into the Indianapolis Colts this year. I think the Indianapolis Colts win that division. The Tennessee Titans have owned that division for a couple of years now. They've dramatically stepped back in the talent on the roster. And I think that that's going to show this year. And the Colts have taken a step forward in that category as well. So I think they switch places. The Colts have kind of been that team where they've been right there. They've really been the team coming in with higher expectations. They went out and got Phillip Rivers a couple years ago. Then they went and got Carson Wentz, just kind of trying to see if they can get a quarterback that can jumpstart everything else they've built up already. And we haven't really gotten a chance to see it out of them yet. But I think Matt Ryan, with his experience and some of the things that he can do, should help elevate this team a little bit. And I think we see them, along with the step back from the Titans, and just kind of the ease of the other games in that division. I mean, I think both of those teams, the Colts and the Titans, should be able to say, they should have 2 wins apiece against Jacksonville and Houston. And they have to take advantage of those. And I think both of those teams take advantage of those. And sneak preview, I had the Titans in the wild card because of that as well. So I think the Colts win that division. But I do think that the Titans also are a, good football team. I don't think they're falling off a cliff or anything like that. I actually like Mike Vrabel as a coach. And I think he seems like one of those coaches that's a figure it out type of coach. He's going to just, piece the things together, whatever he has going, whatever he has on the roster, he's going to kind of make something out of that and figure out ways to win football games. So the wild cards that I have in the AFC, I have 2 AFC West teams, actually. I have the Los Angeles Chargers and the Denver Broncos. I think both of those teams make the playoffs. I really think that I wouldn't be shocked if all 4 AFC West teams made the playoffs. I think that they have that much talent and depth in that division. But my third wild card team is the Titans for reasons that I stated before. I just think that they, realistically, they should be able to look at the Jaguars and the Texans as 2 easy victories. And the Colts already have a tie now with the Texans, and they have to make that up somewhere else. But the Titans should have a path to having 4 easy victories, which that's a lot. I mean, it's a quarter of your schedule in the NFL, and that could be the difference between being in the playoffs and out of the playoffs. And you look at other teams that are going to be on that cusp, like the Chiefs and the Browns, and probably the Steelers as well, the Bengals, all on the cusp of that. they're all in tougher divisions right there. You talk about, not the Chiefs, I'm sorry, the Raiders. You talk about the Raiders, I have all three other teams from their division in the playoffs. You talk about the Browns, you talk about the Steelers, and the Bengals, same thing. I mean, the Bengals already have a loss to the Steelers, and that's just week 1. So that division is going to beat up on itself as well. And I think that you kind of just see the aftermath be the team from the easier division kind of slide in behind the other two. And so I think that's how the AFC shakes out. The path is there for any of these teams to kind of make it through, but the AFC will be a gauntlet. There's a lot of talent over in the AFC. There's a lot of good quarterback play. There's a lot of good receiver play. And I think this is going to be a fun season to see how things shake out over there on that side of the bracket. So for the NFC East, I have the Philadelphia Eagles. I had the Philadelphia Eagles even before the Dak Prescott injury, but now that the Dak Prescott injury happened, and honestly now that just week 1 happened, even if Dak didn't get hurt in that game and the Cowboys performed the way they did, most people probably would have jumped ship anyway, because that's how, volatile the Cowboys stock is. But that Eagles team, I think, is building something. I've been a big believer in Jalen Hurts. I've liked him ever since he's coming out of college. I've talked about him a lot on here. I won't go into a Jalen Hurts segment, but going out and getting A.J. Brown, going out and getting Devontae Smith last year, fortifying, the pieces around Jalen Hurts, building this team to be also a running offense, building up that running back room, building up the scheme with Nick Sirianni. And I think they've just culminated that into something good. And I think the Eagles this year have a clear path to winning that division. The Commanders, I think, will be they'll be pesky. They'll be a tough out most Sundays, but I don't think they present a threat to win this division. The Giants, I don't think, will be very good, quite frankly. I think they'll be improved. I think Brian Dable's the guy. I think he's a good coach, and I think he'll get things figured out there eventually. But I just don't think this year they'll pose a threat at all. And then the Cowboys now losing Dak, I think that seals the deal for their season as well. So the Philadelphia Eagles come out of the NFC East, and we can kind of see where that takes them from there. I have the Green Bay Packers coming out of the NFC North. That one's actually a tough one because I really, really like the Vikings this year. So that was a tough one to predict, but I feel like the Packers have continued to show us that if Aaron Rodgers is healthy, and they've got some playmakers out there, they got some guys he trusts, they can figure out a way to win that division. At this point, I think it's psychological. I don't know if the Bears and Lions can beat him. I just don't know if they physically can do it as organizations at this point. I think when he told the Bears he owns them, I think he actually owns them. It seems impossible. So that's another automatic 4 wins for a team. And then the Vikings already pummeled the Packers in week 1, but we've seen this story before, and we've seen Aaron Rodgers have performances like that, bounce back the next week, and look like the best quarterback to ever walk the earth. So that doesn't concern me too much. I think the Packers still win this division. I think that defense is ferocious. I think they have a really good defense. The running game will be improved with A.J. Dillon getting more involved. You get Allen Lazard back healthy, and you figure out which one of those rookie receivers, Romeo Doubs or Christian Watson, is going to be your guy. And I think you can get something rolling in Green Bay. As far as the ceiling, I think the ceiling is capped without a guy like Devontae Adams on this team. But I think as far as just winning the division, I think it's something Aaron Rodgers can just wake up and do. So I think the Packers will be fine. Similarly, in the NFC West, the Rams. I think the Rams win that division, and I think that's more about my belief in Sean McVay than anything else. Sean McVay has shown us over his time as a head coach that he'll make it work. He'll figure it out. He's kind of the same thing. So he's kind of cut from that cloth like Mike Vrabel. He's a better version of that, of course, but he's cut from that cloth as well. Andy Reid, I feel like, has very similar tendencies to that as well. I mean, you've seen these coaches take teams from whatever and make them into winning teams. So Sean McVay will figure that team out. The Rams have a lot of talent. They have a lot of good players. They'll get that thing figured out over there, and they'll win that NFC West division. The Seahawks, I just don't even think are in it. And then you talk about the 49ers, who I think are the top contender, but with Trey Lance at quarterback and the inexperience there, I just think they'll have to find their way into the wild card. And then the NFC South is probably a surprise to some people, but I have the New Orleans Saints winning that division. I think with Jameis Winston another year removed from injury, having a chance to play with a full complement of weapons. We've seen him before with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans have big performances, and then even losing those guys and turning guys like Brashad Perriman into relevant stars as well. So we've seen him, when he's unleashed, when he's given a chance to, play his game, we've seen him be a good quarterback. And I think with the weapons he has in Jarvis Landry, in Michael Thomas, and rookie Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara coming out of the backfield, veteran Mark Ingram coming out of the backfield, a solid offensive line. They've got a good foundation, and the Saints always have a great defense. They've got great defensive personnel, and they're going to have one of the elite units in the league. And I think the Buccaneers, dealing with a lot of injuries, dealing with the loss of some players on their side, I think they take a small step back this year, and that opens the door for the Saints to kind of bust in and win this division in their first year after Sean Payton retires. So I think that'll be a great story. It'll be fun to watch that team throughout the rest of this season and kind of see the redemption there. But I do think the Saints end up winning that division. And then my wild cards out of the NFC. I talked up all three of these teams already, but the Minnesota Vikings, I like Kevin O'Connell a lot, and I like what they're building there. I love Justin Jefferson. I actually think Kirk Cousins is solid. I think he's all right. And I think with a guy like Justin Jefferson, with a guy like Adam Thielen, with Dalvin Cook, they could do something good this year. So I think they do sneak in as a wild card team. I think the San Francisco 49ers, Kyle Shanahan's proven he's kind of one of those coaches as well. I didn't mention his name, but he's going to figure it out. He's going to figure out a way to win some football games, run the football, and have his team in the playoffs. I think they'll be there. I don't know if I believe in Trey Lance yet as a NFL starting caliber quarterback, but I do think that for what Kyle Shanahan can do with his offense and can do with his running game, I think Trey Lance will fit that fine, and I think they can win games with him. So I think the 49ers make it to the wild card as well. And then, of course, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You don't think I'm leaving Tom Brady out of that. I've learned my lesson on betting against Tom Brady. The Buccaneers, if he plays the whole season, the Buccaneers will be in the playoffs. And it'll be another fun storyline to see if this is his last hurrah again. And I think, like I said before, I think the Buccaneers will take a step back. They lost Gronk, Antonio Brown. Chris Godwin's coming off an ACL injury, and now he's dealing with a hamstring as well. So you're looking at Mike Evans. You're looking at Julio Jones, who they signed in the offseason, who, of course, is a shell of his former self. You got Leonard Fournette out there. You lost Alex Kappa. You lost a couple other offensive linemen as well. So you lost Ryan Jensen for the season. Ryan Jensen got injured. There's a lot of attrition already for the Buccaneers. So I do think they take a step back this year in talent, but I think that they figure out a way to make it to the playoffs. And usually when that happens, by that time of year, Tom Brady has it figured out, and his team is peaking. So that'll be fun to watch. And that kind of leads me into talking about my Super Bowl pick. So my Super Bowl pick this year is the Kansas City Chiefs over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think we get a rematch of 2 years ago. I think Tom Brady probably is done after this year. I think at some point during this season, he announces it. It may be later on in the year, and if they're in, contention, if they got stuff going on, I think it could even be like way down towards the Super Bowl. But I think at some point before the last play is snapped in this season, Tom Brady announces this is his last year. And I think he goes out with a Super Bowl run. Like I said, I think they make it in the wild card, so they'll go on the road and kind of do what they did his first year in Tampa. Go on the road, go through a gauntlet of teams in the NFC, make it to the Super Bowl with his last hurrah. And he's got the young gun who wants us thrown there waiting on him. But I think Patrick Mahomes handles business this time. He's on a mission right now, and it looks like, the Chiefs are kind of playing from a perspective of the hunter again instead of the hunted. So we'll see how that goes. I would love to see Tom Brady go out with a Super Bowl appearance and a Super Bowl loss to my Chiefs, but we'll see how all that shakes out. Now for the awards, MVP, I think Josh Allen's going to win the MVP this year. They've been building up trying to get this thing to Josh Allen for a couple of years anyway, so I think it's finally time. I do think that Patrick Mahomes has an MVP-worthy season, but I don't think he throws for 5,050. And since his MVP precedent has been set there, voters won't vote him as MVP again, at least not anytime soon, unless he hits those numbers. And it's kind of weird because he'll have the narrative, he'll have the narrative of losing Tyreek Hill. The defense is going to be a middling defense. It's not going to be an elite defense like the Bills will. But I think just the precedent for Patrick Mahomes MVP has been set. He's got to throw for 5,050, and I think Josh Allen is going to have an MVP caliber season in and of his own. I think Josh Allen's a really good player, and I think he'll be deserving of the MVP. I'm not taking anything away from him, but I just think that's how it's going to look because I do think Patrick Mahomes is going to be the best player in the NFL this year, and I think he's going to want everybody else to know that, and I think he's going to be on a crash course to doing that all season. But Josh Allen is going to be the one that's also doing that, maybe not in the same vein, but he'll be the one that gets rewarded with that award at the end of the year. Offensive Player of the Year. So I went a little bit unorthodox. It was a very, very tough decision to decide between Christian McCaffrey and Justin Jefferson, but I settled on Christian McCaffrey. And I think that's just the involvement. And it's crazy because we didn't see it in week one, but when Christian McCaffrey plays and he's healthy, he gets so many carries, targets, and everything else. He just has the ball all the time, and he's such a good football player that if he stays healthy for an entire season, he's a legitimate threat to rush and receive for over 1,000 yards each. And so in that vein, it's really, really hard to see him not winning an award like that, if he has that volume, if he has that production. So that's kind of where that comes from. Defensive Player of the Year, Micah Parsons. He was close to having this award last year. He's a really, really good player. He'll elevate his game again. And even if his season isn't as good as last year, if he has another elite season, I think the voters will also say, okay, we didn't give it to him last year. We'll go ahead and give it to him. But he'll still be deserving. I think he's one of the rising superstars of the NFL. Like, he's on a Hall of Fame trajectory. He's going to be one of the best players of all time. And I genuinely believe that. I think watching him play, even watching him play in college, you could see it. From the very first time I watched Micah Parsons play, it was clear at Penn State. It was clear that this dude's on another level. He's going to be a stud at the NFL level, and he gets to the NFL. He's pass rushing. My brain's melted by what Micah Parsons has done as an NFL player. So I think Micah Parsons will be Defensive Player of the Year this year. Rookies of the Year on the offensive side, I think it'll be Chris Olave. I think he works his way into being, if not the top option in that Saints offense, the second option by the end of this season. And I think him and Jameis Winston have a good connection. They drafted him really high, and I think they start to involve him heavily, and he puts up some numbers. In a division, he's going to, need to score some points on a team that is going to need him. So I think that'll be fun to watch as he blossoms. He's also my favorite receiver from this class. So that kind of went into this decision as well. I knew it would be a receiver, and he was my favorite. And so that was an easier one for me to do. Defensive Rookie of the Year. This one I feel like is just like really chalky, but I think it's Aiden Hutchinson. I think it's just the situation and his skill set fit perfectly, and I think he's going to have the best chance to put up numbers. He's going to have the best chance to produce, and I think he produces some good numbers, and I think he puts some good film out and wins this award. So I don't think it'll be anything near what Micah Parsons did last year of like threatening for being the best defensive player in the NFL in his first year, but I think that it'll be a very respectable rookie season. Probably, you're probably looking at somewhere between 6 and 8 sacks over the course of the year if he can stay healthy and all that stuff too. And that'll be very respectable, and that'll be encouraging for the Lions organization and for anybody else rooting for Aiden Hutchinson as well. My comeback player of the year is Jameis Winston. He just has continued to deal with the injury bug, continue to deal with all of this stuff. But I think if he bounces back and leads the Saints to winning that NFC South division, that would be a great chance for him to get a shot at that award. And then my coach of the year is actually who I would have voted for as coach of the year last year, Nick Sirianni. I think Nick Sirianni's done a great job with the Eagles. A lot of the credit is, it's always weird sometimes when you hear coaches and you hear teams get talked about. And certain teams, it's about the players. Certain teams, it's about, what they're doing. And certain teams, it's about the coaches. And Nick Sirianni, I think once he had that press conference where people kind of questioned what he was talking about, he didn't really fully know what he was talking about in his first press conference. He sounded a little nervous, sounded a little like he got his words mixed up. And I think ever since then, people have just kind of put him on the back burner. But we can't ignore what this guy's done. I mean, he's only in his second year, and last year he had the team that led the NFL in rushing yards. He had to deal with the aftermath of a franchise quarterback, a guy who was on an MVP trajectory just a couple of seasons before that, being sent out of town and building it back up with this other quarterback who half the people in the world don't even believe can be an NFL quarterback. So he did that, built an offense perfectly built for Jalen Hurts. They led the league in rushing. They made the playoffs. And just a great story, And I think that the job he's done there, it continued into this season. They scored 38 points in week 1. And I think that it'll continue rolling. They win that division, and I think he gets a crack at that award. And I think that'll be good for him to get. And it'll be a culmination of everything he's done in his first 2 years. All right, so enough of those awards now. Some of the things that I'm watching going into week 2. I'll be looking at some of the teams that'll be wanting to bounce back this week. The Rams, Packers, Bengals, the Colts, Broncos, and the 49ers. These are all teams that I think will be good football teams. Good to great football teams. I actually think that the Rams are going to be a great team. I think the Rams are fine. But I think these teams are going to be good teams. And I'll be interested to see how all of these teams bounce back this week, how they respond to the losses, varying degrees of losses. But pretty much all of them, except for maybe the 49ers, I would say was pretty embarrassing. I mean, the Rams got embarrassed in the opening game of the season by the Bills. They just got manhandled. The Bills did anything they wanted, and they legitimately embarrassed the Rams. The Packers game, from the box score and from what I saw, so I got a chance to watch some of the Justin Jefferson film, and it looked like I don't know if they were like zoning him and trying to keep him in some kind of zone bracket, or if they just were not paying attention to him. But Justin Jefferson was open on a lot of his plays, and he was just kind of running around on a defense that was supposed to be pretty good. So I don't know. That one was interesting. I'll be interested to see how the Packers bounce back. I think Allen Lazard will be back for them, who they have said is going to be their number one receiver. So I'm interested to see that as well, if that'll help this offense get out of that funk it was in that game, and see how they bounce back. Cincinnati Bengals, they lost to the Steelers. They had an extra point. They scored a touchdown basically at the end of the game. Extra point, got a blocked extra point. They turned the ball over 5 times in this game. Just a crazy, bizarre game. Went to overtime, went to the last seconds of overtime, actually. So they need to bounce back. The Colts tied with the Texans. They were actually down huge in this game. They were down 20-3. So, yeah. Texans 2, Colts 0. the last two times. The Texans ruined, or actually not the Texans, it was the Jaguars. Damn, AFC South bottom dwelling teams 2, Colts 0. The Jaguars kept the Colts out of the playoffs last year, and then they start this year with so much promise and high expectations, only for the Texans to give them a run for their money again. So that was an interesting one. The Denver Broncos, some of that I think was jitters, but there are some things that I'm watching on this team because I think they looked really unprepared at a lot of points of that game. And I didn't like the body language. I didn't like the pace. They were, the play clock was running out or almost running out on every play. People were looking confused. It didn't look like Russ had a command of the offense. So I'll be interested to see how that offense looks in week 2 and if they kind of get into a better rhythm than they were in week 1. And then the 49ers, I think are going to be fine. They played a game in basically a monsoon. You couldn't even really see the numbers on the field because there was so much water. So you kind of just have to scrap that and see what happens next week. I would like to see some better patience and things from Trey Lance. There were some things that we like to see from him. But I think overall, you can't really judge anybody based off of that game just because of how yucky it was, how muddy it was, and all of that stuff. So I'll be watching all of those teams. Another storyline I'll be watching is Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. I talked about him in the MVP category. I think they're on a collision course to be in the 2 favorites for that award, and I think they both have outstanding years, and I think they're going to be must-see TV every week. So week 2, tune in. Both of those guys are must-see again this week. Rookie coaches. Some rookie coaches got some victories in their first games. Kevin O'Connell looked really good against the division rival Packers. Brian Daboll looked really good against the number 1 seed last year, Tennessee Titans. Matt Eberflus won his first game for the Bears against those 49ers that I mentioned before that I think are a really good football team. Mike McDaniel won his first game with the Dolphins against the Patriots, who are the big, bad, mighty Patriots in that division, and they handled them pretty handily. So good stuff from all of these coaches, and you want to see kind of where the momentum goes. You want to see how they build off of that and what that looks like for them going forward this season. But great start for them, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. I'm going to be watching a few teams, and this will probably be throughout the season. But there's some teams that I think could be surprises this year. And maybe not even necessarily with just the playoffs, but just surprises as far as winning games, surprises as far as how good they are. And there's 4 of them. I have the Vikings, the Steelers, the Commanders, and the Lions. And starting with the Vikings, I've talked about them already a lot. I like the talent on the team. I like the new coach. And I think that that'll marry together to do something good this year. And I think that they have all of the pieces that they would need to even make a deep playoff run. So, I'm interested to see how that Vikings team develops. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they have Mike Tomlin at coach, and that just means they never have a bad team, really. And even with Mitchell Trubisky or Mason Rudolph, maybe we get a chance to see Kenny Pickett. But no matter who we see at quarterback, I think this team figures out a way to win some football games and crash the party. I wouldn't even be surprised if they figured out a way to crash the playoff party like they did last year. They did the same thing last season with a shell of Ben Roethlisberger and a defense that wasn't really playing that well, and they got the doors blown off of them. But they figured out a way to get there, and so you never can count them out. It could be the same thing again. The Washington Commanders. I think the Washington Commanders kind of go year by year under Ron Rivera of having a really good defense to having a bad one. And I think that they're going to go back to having a really good defense this year. And I think that the defense is going to step up. Ron Rivera is a good defensive coach. I think Carson Wentz is an upgrade from what they had at quarterback. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be the quarterback that's going to put the team on his back and win you games, but he's going to at least be a competent quarterback, and they have some talent on that team to where they can win some games. And ironically, the other team that's a potential surprise is the team that the Commanders are playing in week 2. That's the Detroit Lions. I think the Detroit Lions is another team, kind of like the Commanders. Dan Campbell's building something good there. They're going to compete every week. They have a lot of talent on that team. I mean, this is a team that's been bad for a while now. They've been picking at the top of the draft, and they've compiled some good talent. They've compiled some really good players, and I'll be interested to see how they progress and how many upsets they pull this year. Almost pulled one in week one. They had a furious comeback against the Eagles. They fell short by 3 points, 38-35. So definitely got the firepower and the talent to compete with just about anybody in the league. And then lastly, for the NFL, I just want to do a game to watch this week, a game that I'm watching. I'll probably do this every week now, but a game that I'll be paying attention to, that I'll be watching, that I think everybody should tune in. This was a cheat, so I'm going to go ahead and do two of them, and both of them technically are cheats. But anyway, the first one's the Chiefs and the Chargers. I think this will be the game of the weekend. It's the Thursday night football game, division rivals, two of the best young quarterbacks in the game, with a lot to prove. Justin Herbert, I know he's been hearing the noise all offseason. He's super talented. He's a really good player, but he can't make the playoffs, and all of those things. And he couldn't lead his team to a win in the last game to make the playoffs, or he lost to the Texans a couple weeks before. It ended up coming to bite him, and Patrick Mahomes with losing Tyreek Hill and having all those things, and also losing at home to the Chargers last year. And both of those teams now having confidence coming into this game. The Chiefs knowing that they want to defend their house this time, and the Chargers knowing they just won in this building last year. So a big-time matchup, a huge game with AFC implications, AFC West implications, and all of that. A major game to pay attention to. Tune into that Chiefs-Chargers Thursday night football game. You won't regret it. There's going to be a lot of points and a lot of fun in that game. Honorable mention for this, two teams that I've talked about a lot already in this podcast. The Vikings and the Eagles play in week 2. Two of the up-and-coming teams that I think could both have legitimate shots at being, dark horse Super Bowl teams. I think both of those teams have tools and players in place that would allow them to be able, to make a run in the playoffs, to make a run at their divisions and all of that. So I want to see how both of those teams respond to playing their first playing their first primetime game of the season, but also playing against one another, both teams that have a lot higher expectations than they had coming into the previous year. And I'm interested to see how they react with one another and how those teams play. So that'll be exciting to watch. All right. So I actually had not a whole lot of other stuff that I wanted to talk about, but I did want to talk about a couple of other things. But this has gone a little bit longer than I wanted it to. So I did want to talk about Donovan Mitchell getting traded, Patrick Beverley getting traded as well, just kind of the balance of power in the NBA, and Fernando Tatis, Albert Pujols, and some other stuff. But I think we're gonna table that for next time. So just listen up for next time here in the next couple of days. I'll put the rest of that stuff in another podcast, but I don't want this one to get too long. I appreciate you guys so much for listening. You guys know where to find me on the socials, and it'll be in the description as well. Be on the lookout. I actually, now I'm finishing recording this one. I need to edit another podcast as well, previewing the Chiefs and all of that. So if you want the KC stuff, that one's coming as well tomorrow. So you guys definitely be on the lookout for all of this content. And I appreciate you for listening. I appreciate you guys' patience. I feel like the first time doing that on cameras is a success. We'll see how this thing continues to develop, but I appreciate you guys for watching, listening, supporting, and everything else that you've done. Remember, be alive, be present. Can't thank you guys enough for supporting me this whole time and finally getting to this point where I can share my face with you and get a chance to interact in this way. And this will add a lot of different elements to the podcast. This will add a lot of different possibilities of things that I wasn't able to do before. So I'm excited for that. Be on the lookout for all of that good stuff, all of this new stuff. And until next time.